Silence over the ice. The winds howled across the frozen lands of old Earth. In the far south, beneath the endless white of Antarctica, the ice stretched for miles, untouched by machines, cities, or noise. Just silence. But deep under that ice, something waited. For centuries it had slept. Until now. In orbit above Earth, ships from the Galactic Dominion floated like dark clouds. They were sleek, massive, and full of weapons. The Council had declared Earth unstable and uncooperative. After ignoring decades of warnings, Earth had been marked for enforcement, which meant invasion. Commander Varys, standing on the bridge of the Dominion flagship, stared down at Earth. Primitive, full of storms, little value. Still, orders. Our orders. The first wave of ships began entering the atmosphere. Cities across Earth lit up with warnings. Old defense grids activated, but Earth's main fleets were scattered across the outer systems. Only local defense forces remained, enough to slow the enemy, not stop them. At a monitoring post near Antarctica, a small team received a strange reading. The ice was shaking, not cracking, not melting, vibrating. Technician Mark, watching. The console leaned forward. This doesn't make sense. There's movement below the fifth crust layer. Something big. Above them, Dominion ships soared overhead. Antarctica was not marked for attack. It had no cities, no bases, just ice. So the enemy ignored it. That was their first mistake. In a bunker buried under the ice shelf, old machines came online. Lights flickered. Symbols lit up on walls made of black stone. A pulse moved through the ground like a heartbeat. Then, eyes opened. Not human eyes. Something older. Something built. It remembered war. It remembered fire. It remembered the fall. Of the first ones, the ancient humans who had vanished long before Earth's current age. And it remembered its purpose. Awaken if Earth faces destruction. Awaken if the sky falls. Awaken when the time to sleep is over. Now, it rose. The ice above cracked. Thick white layers burst into the air. Snow flew into the sky. Dominion ships nearby turned and scanned the disturbance. From below the frozen shelf, a massive object emerged. Black, shining, shaped like no known Earth ship. It rose slowly, dragging towers of ice with it, glowing with deep red lines that pulsed in rhythm. Commander Varys saw it on the screen and frowned. What is that? Earth? Has no shipyards in this region. He leaned in, then his face paled. The ship wasn't just launching, it was powering weapons. In the command station near the edge of the ice, Mark watched the radar. That's not a mountain, he said softly. That's a ship. No. More than a ship. Others gathered behind him, eyes wide. One whispered, "What did we bury here?" Mark replied, "I think we didn't bury it. I think it buried itself, a long time ago." High above, Dominion fighters began to fire. Energy. Blasts streaked toward the black shape rising from the ice they never hit. A pulse shot from the ship, fast, invisible to the eye. The fighter simply vanished. No debris, no fire, just gone. Panic broke across the enemy fleet. Commander Varys shouted, "Full retreat from Polar Zone. Something is active down there, something we don't understand." But it was too late. The ancient machine that had slept for millennia was now awake, and it was angry. In Earth's emergency defense headquarters, scrambled officers received a live feed from Antarctica. It showed the massive ship, rising into the clouds surrounded by spiraling ice. The general stared at the screen. This wasn't in any record. Not in our maps. Not in history. What is that thing? An old scientist in the room whispered. Not. What? Who? They all turned. The scientist nodded toward the ship. A guardian. From before us. From the First War. From the time Earth was nearly destroyed. He looked around the room. And now, it remembers everything. Far above, in the cold, dark sky, the Dominion fleet reorganized, but Earth was no longer sleeping, and what had risen from the ice was just the beginning. The Guardian ascends. The sky above Antarctica turned red and gold as the massive black vessel climbed higher. Snow melted from the heat of its core, steam rising in thick waves from the shattered ice below. No human alive had ever seen anything like it. It was not made by any Earth government, not even by the United Earth Coalition. It had no flag, no nameplate. It was something older, something forgotten, but now remembered. In the Dominion fleet's forward command ship, alarms rang across the bridge. Commander Varys stood motionless as new readings flooded the screens. Power. Levels. Off the scale. An officer said, pale with fear. That object's energy core is more powerful than any dreadnought in our fleet. It's recharging. Varys turned sharply. Recharging for what? No one answered. From the ice below, the massive ship reached low orbit. Its form was sharp, angular, but elegant. Half organic, half machine. It didn't need fuel. It fed on ambient energy, drawing power from magnetic fields and solar radiation. And now, it was scanning. Not the stars, the enemies above. Its systems, though ancient, were intelligent, alive even. It didn't need pilots. It had one purpose, locked deep in its AI memory. Protect Earth, eliminate all foreign threats, awaken only in the hour of final need. That hour had come. In the North Atlantic Command Center, General Holt watched the global feeds. Cities were quiet. The invasion hadn't yet begun on the ground, but panic was spreading. Everyone had seen the mysterious vessel rising from the ice. Everyone had questions. One technician whispered, "What if it's not on our side?" The general replied, "If it wanted to attack us, it would have done it already." Silence followed. Then the feed lit up from space. The Dominion fleet, thinking itself untouchable, began to regroup. They formed a standard attack wedge, 3 capital ships forward, support cruisers behind, drone fighters in a swarm above. As their systems locked onto the rising vessel, their weapons prepared for impact. But the black ship moved first. It vanished, not cloaked, gone. A heartbeat later, it reappeared behind the lead Dominion warship. Before anyone could react, a beam of pure red light tore through the enemy ship's center. No explosion, no debris, just a silent slice. The ship split in half and drifted apart. The rest of the fleet panicked. Target reappeared at rear. It's too fast. Sensors can't track it. Another warship fired blindly. Missiles shot across space. None of them hit. The ancient vessel reappeared again, now above the support cruisers. Its lower hull opened like the petals of a metal flower. Dozens of small drones poured out, not simple weapons but self-guided attack constructs, shaped like shards of obsidian, each as deadly as a full fighter craft. They tore through the cruisers, like fire through paper. On Earth, crowds watched the sky. People in cities, deserts, mountains. Everyone looked up and saw streaks of light dancing above the clouds. At first they thought it was the enemy attacking. Then they saw who was winning. The dark ship from the ice was protecting them. A child in New Berlin pointed upward. "Is that ours?" Her father stared at the red streak across the heavens and said, "No, that's older than us, but it's fighting for us." Commander Varys gave the order. "Retreat, fall back to outer orbit." But the ship from the ice wasn't done. It chased them, appearing and disappearing, cutting ships down one by one with cold, quiet precision. No anger, no voice, just purpose. Within 20 minutes, half of the Dominion fleet had been destroyed, and Earth hadn't fired a single missile. In the hidden vaults of Earth's oldest AI archives, dormant files began unlocking. Terms like Project Obelisk and Phase Omega appeared. The ancient ship had a name. It wasn't a warship. It wasn't a guardian. It was something else. something Earth had once built long ago, then sealed away. Its name was still classified, but the message it transmitted now echoed in every Dominion comm channel. This planet is protected. Withdraw or be removed. The galaxy had expected Earth to fall, but instead, it had risen. From beneath, the ice. The silence between strikes. The orbit above Earth, once filled with the cold confidence of the Dominion fleet, had gone silent. Wreckage floated in broken rings. Fires burned in the void. The once proud formation of ships now drifted as shattered pieces across low orbit. At the heart of it all, the ancient black vessel hovered alone, still, watching, waiting. On board the Dominion command cruiser, one of the few that had survived, the mood had shifted from arrogance to fear. Commander Varys stood at the bridge, his hands clenched behind his back. Every system beeped warnings. Half the fleet was gone. The rest couldn't even lock targeting systems on the thing that had destroyed them. "What is it?" he whispered, more to himself than to the crew. A junior officer replied, "Our scans say it's alive, but mechanical. Its systems are unreadable. Our weapons can't track it." Another officer added, "It's not like anything in the database. We're not just outmatched, we're outclassed." Back on Earth, in the Arctic monitoring base closest to the ice zone, Technician Mark reviewed the historical logs unearthed since the ship awakened. The files were ancient, buried so deep in Earth's old war archives that no AI system even indexed them. The only readable phrase was one repeated line: "If the cold one rises, the end has already begun." Mark frowned. "What does that mean?" Another officer responded, "Maybe it was Earth's final plan, not a weapon, a backup soul. A final defender." Mark shook his head. "It's not just defending, it's hunting." High above, the black ship moved again, not fast, not panicked, deliberate. It scanned every Dominion ship, pausing only when one was deemed retreating or non-hostile. Those ships were allowed to drift away, but any vessel showing signs of rearming or re-engaging, they vanished. One blink, one flash, gone. In Dominion space, back on the homeworld of Galthus, leaders watched the unfolding disaster with horror. Dozens of fleets had invaded worlds before. No resistance had ever looked like this. One warlord shouted, "It's one ship, one machine." But a pale ambassador replied, "No, it's more than that. It's Earth's response, and we poked something we didn't understand." They all turned toward the live feed again, just in time to see the black ship fire another silent pulse that sliced through 3 more cruisers. The Dominion turned quiet. For the first time in generations, they considered retreat. Back aboard, the ancient Earth vessel, its systems began rerouting power, not for battle, for something deeper. Hidden doors inside its core opened. A small pod was ejected from the underbelly, smooth, dark, and falling fast. It shot through Earth's atmosphere like a comet, crashing into the old ruins near the South Pole, far from human cities, but watched closely by every satellite. The pod opened. Inside was not a person, not a weapon, but a seed. A glowing, humming orb, pulsing with warmth and light. It planted itself into the ice. Within hours, the snow melted in a perfect circle. The ground trembled. Machines long buried began to stir. The ship had not just been built to defend. It had been built to restore, to awaken Earth's oldest defenses and possibly Earth's oldest memories. In the human war room, General Holt stared at the live footage. "Sir," one of his aides said, "we just got a message from the ship." "What kind of message?" "Text only, very short, 4 words. Read it." The aide read aloud. Phase 1, Earth secured. Back in orbit, the last of the Dominion ships turned away, limping out of Earth's gravity well, their pride bleeding behind them. They did not speak. They did not threaten. They ran. And the galaxy, watching from afar, began to understand something terrifying. Earth was not the target. It had become the event. What slept beneath its ice had only just begun to stir, and when awakened, it remembered everything. The second awakening, the skies above Earth were still. Dominion ships, what few remained, had retreated beyond sensor range. The world's major cities stood untouched. Not a single human city had been bombed. Not one. Ground battle had begun, because something far worse had happened for the invaders. They had awakened the Cold One. Inside the ancient vessel hovering above Earth, systems shifted from combat mode to awakening protocols. The ship no longer searched for targets. It began scanning Earth itself. Across the globe, forgotten towers buried deep within mountains hummed for the first time in millennia. Faint lights pulsed under oceans, deserts, and old craters. These were not military weapons. They were older. Stranger, they were memories. The Cold One wasn't just a warship, it was a key, and Earth was a locked vault. Technician Mark stood at the monitoring station, staring at the strange energy patterns forming across the poles. "Sir, something is changing in the planet's crust. All ancient magnetic lines are being reactivated." Another officer asked, "Is it dangerous?" Mark looked unsure. "Not for us, but it's not for us either." General Holt, standing nearby, clenched his jaw. "What are we watching, then?" Mark answered slowly. "A part of Earth that doesn't belong to our time. Something built before we had history." Deep below the South Pole, where the pod had landed, the ground cracked open further. Ice turned to steam, then stone. From the cracked crust, a tall pillar rose, covered in runes no human language could read. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Around it, the ground reshaped itself, turning into a perfect ring of obsidian and silver. Satellites picked up strange data. Every species watching, friend or enemy, saw it. Coordinates, a signal, a simple phrase broadcasting across galactic space. Earth has reawakened. The first memory begins. In distant alien territories, ancient species stirred. On forgotten planets, old warning lights blinked for the first time in tens of thousands of years. A few scholars among them recognized the phrase. They trembled. "It's real," they whispered. The stories were true. Back in Dominion space, Commander Varys limped back into council chambers, broken and bruised. He was met with silence. "No," one mocked Earth now. He spoke only one sentence to his superiors. "We woke up the wrong world." A week later, a council delegation requested formal talks with Earth, an emergency meeting. Earth declined. Instead, the Cold One sent a single signal to the galaxy. "This world is not open to negotiation. You came for war. You found the past." And, with that, it turned and began to drift toward Earth's moon. Tom, now part of Earth's Strategic Council, watched the ship's movement from a high-orbit platform. He wasn't a general. Not a scientist, just a soldier who had lived through the awakening. Captain Mara joined him, holding a datapad full of new scans. She said quietly, "This isn't just about defense anymore." Tom nodded. "No, this is something bigger." She looked up at the Cold One in the distance. "It's waking up the planet." Tom's voice was calm, steady. Maybe the planet was never asleep. Maybe it was just waiting for the right time. He stared down at Earth, now humming with quiet power. "We thought we were Earth's peak," he whispered. "But we're just the current chapter." And so it began, not with conquest, but with return. The Dominion had come to attack Earth. Instead, they had unlocked its greatest mystery. And far beneath the surface, the planet remembered what it once was, and what it was meant to become. The memory of fire. The Cold One no longer circled Earth like a warship. It moved like a messenger, passing across the planet's surface, awakening ancient sites long forgotten, even by humans. In the deep jungles of the old South American ruins, mountains shifted slightly, not by human hands, not by weather, but by command. In the oceans, coral towers that had once been dismissed as natural began glowing faintly. Pulses of light shot through the deep sea trenches, and under the sands of the Sahara, a signal tower long thought to be just myth rose slowly, blinking in the rhythm of the Cold One's orbit. Something was returning, but no one knew what. R2. The United Earth Command Center, General Holt stood before a wall-sized display showing Earth covered in red and blue rings. Each one marked an awakened site. There are 57 locations so far, a tech officer said, and they're not random, they form a pattern. Pattern of what? Holt asked. A memory circuit, like, the planet itself is coming back online. Silence followed. Then Holt said, "Get the linguists, get the historians, get everyone. Because if this planet's about to speak, we need to be ready to listen." In space, the Cold One transmitted again, not a threat, not a warning, a story. A wideband signal was picked up not just by Earth but by listening stations across the galaxy. It showed images. Ancient ones. A world bathed in silver-blue light. Cities of crystal and shadow. A race of humans older than any recorded time. Starships sailing through wormholes. And finally, war. Not from Earth. To Earth. A galactic purge. The ancient humans had been feared. Too strong, too smart, too fast. They had unlocked something the galaxy didn't understand. So the galaxy tried to wipe them out. It almost worked. Earth was bombarded, cities lost, oceans boiled. And so the survivors sealed away their knowledge, buried their guardians, and vanished, leaving behind only what could not be found. Until now. Tom sat in a high-altitude observation pod watching the Cold One pass over the icy regions once again. He wore no uniform, only a coat and headset. The voice of a translator AI whispered into his ear. "Story complete. This is the first memory." Tom sat back slowly. "So, we weren't Earth's first civilization. We were just the next." Captain Mara joined him. "That ship, it's not just defending Earth. It's preparing it." "For what?" Tom asked. She didn't answer, because no one knew yet. Meanwhile, in deep Dominion space, the high leaders gathered behind closed doors. They had seen the memory, the purge. Their ancestors were part of it, and now, Earth had the evidence. "It's going to tell the galaxy," one warlord said. "They'll know we tried to destroy the first humans." A diplomat replied coldly. "Then we must finish what our ancestors started." Another spoke up, shaking. "You don't understand, we didn't defeat them, we only made them sleep. Now they've woken up and they remember." No one had a reply to that. Back on Earth, the awakened structures across the planet began working together. Low-frequency pulses were timed and tuned. Lights formed perfect geometric shapes, visible only from orbit. From the stars, Earth looked alive, not just with cities and people, but with intention. The Cold One returned to its place over the South Pole, hovering silently once more. But before it went quiet, it sent one final message. The first memory has been restored. The galaxy tried to erase Earth. Earth remembers. The second memory will begin. The message echoed in every system that could hear it. And far beyond the galactic rim, something heard it too, something that hadn't moved in a long, long time. Now it stirred, and Earth prepared to face not just what came for it, but what it once knew long before history began. Echoes from the edge, the stars around Earth grew quiet. No new attacks came. No fleets moved closer. The galaxy was watching, but this time with caution. Earth had changed. It was no longer just a frontier world of unpredictable humans. It had become a place of old power and deeper memory. And the galaxy didn't know what would come next. Inside Earth's ancient structures, now fully awake, strange patterns appeared across the planet's magnetic fields. Each pulse carried data, stories, images, maps, all from the first civilization. Historians across Earth struggled to keep up. "This is rewriting everything we know," one of them said in a broadcast. They weren't just early humans. They were explorers, engineers, possibly creators. 1. Key map decoded from the pulses showed a path. Beyond the edge of the galaxy, marked only with a symbol, a black spiral surrounded by red flame. It was labeled in old code as Origin Lost. And now, it was active. Back aboard the Cold One, the Ambar AI core activated again. Inside its neural chamber, holograms played out a new message. The second memory unlocks. Prepare for recontact. That word, recontact, echoed across every listening post on Earth. Commander Tom was the first to ask. Recontact with who? Technician Mark had a possible answer. If Earth was purged, some may have escaped. Some may have hidden beyond known space. Captain Mara added. Or something escaped with them. In Dominion space, panic began to spread in secret. Scouts on the edge of mapped systems started going missing. Faint signals came in, scrambled, broken, mentioning objects moving through dark space. Too fast, too silent, and always toward one place, Earth, the Dominion Council debated fiercely. Strike them now, one leader urged. Before they finish awakening, another shook his head. We tried. We failed. If they're contacting the first ones, then this galaxy is about to change forever. A third leader spoke what everyone feared. If those ancient humans return, we'll be the ones who fall. Back on Earth, the second signal arrived. It came in the form of sound, a long, low note heard only by machines tuned to ancient frequencies. Not a warning, not a threat, a greeting. We see you, Cold One. Memory holds. We return. Across the moon's far side, another structure activated, a large circular device embedded in the crust. Dust and rock peeled away. Lights flared. A portal began to charge. Earth wasn't just waking up. It was opening a door. Tom stood on the observation deck above Lunar Station 9, watching the portal hum with light and energy. His voice was quiet. What do we do if something comes through? Captain Mara, watching beside him, gave a steady answer. Then we greet them. As children of Earth, as survivors, as the ones who remembered. In the days that followed, transmissions increased. Dozens, hundreds. Species across the galaxy began reporting strange things. Satellites flickering. Dreams of old stars. Voices from beneath the surface of old colonies. The galaxy was changing, but Earth had already changed. From the ice. From the memory. From the silence it once held. Now the planet was a signal. A call. And the final message from the Cold One echoed again. They came for Earth. They expected weakness. But Earth was only sleeping. The second memory begins. Prepare the gate. The gate shimmered brighter on the moon. Something was on its way, and Earth, Death World, birthplace of fury and now keeper of the first memory, stood ready. The gate opens. The moon was no longer silent. On its dark side, the ancient gate, now fully uncovered and humming with life, glowed in patterns unknown to any living species. Lightning arced between its stone-like rings. The symbols carved into its surface pulsed like a heartbeat. Then, it activated. A soft tremor rolled through the lunar crust, and the gate opened. On Earth, every satellite focused on the moon. In cities and bunkers, people watched the live feeds, expecting something, huge, terrifying, or divine to emerge. But what came through was a signal. No ship, no weapon, just a voice. To those who remember, we have waited. We are near. We are coming not in conquest, but in return. The voice was calm, not human, but close. Male and female, young and ancient, and it carried hope, but also warning. The purge was not complete. The threat remains. If Earth is awake, then so are they. In Dominion space, the alarms screamed. Scout fleets on the galaxy's outer edge went completely dark. Massive energy signatures bloomed, Too controlled to be natural, too unfamiliar to match any known tech, the Dominion Council entered emergency lockdown. Military leaders shouted across communication lines, "They're not human. They're not Dominion. They're something else." But someone in the shadows of the chamber finally said what no one wanted to believe. "They're the first ones, the ancient humans. They're back." Back on Earth, the Cold One had returned to the upper atmosphere. It no longer hovered like a hunter. It floated like a guardian. Its core pulses synced with the awakened Earth structures below. A council of human leaders, military commanders, and scientific advisors gathered in a vast chamber beneath Geneva Command. Tom and Captain Mara stood beside General Holt. The room was quiet as the final decoded message from the gate played. "Prepare the stars. Rebuild the light. They will come again." Tom turned to the general. "Sir, the galaxy thinks this is about revenge. But it's not. It's about warning them." "The first ones didn't run, they held back what chased them," Captain Mara added. "Now the chains are breaking." The general nodded. "Then we don't just defend Earth anymore." He pointed upward. "We defend everything." Weeks later, the first ship arrived through the moon gate. It wasn't built like anything Earth had seen. Long, smooth, lined with living light. It slowed as it entered orbit and transmitted one phrase in perfect Earth Standard English. "We left you a world. You gave us a home. Now we fight beside you." The first ones had returned, not as ghosts, not as legends, but as allies. Across the galaxy, those who once mocked Earth now watched it with silent awe. The world they thought weak had remembered who it was. A cradle of war and peace. A planet forged by fire and ice. A species that had survived its own death. And now stood as the first wall against the coming dark. Earth was not the same anymore. It had risen. It had awakened. And now, beside its ancient kin, it whispered back into the stars. "We were born from death. But we are not finished. We remember. And we will endure." The galaxy had come for Earth. But what rose from the ice was something none of them could have prepared for.